a lifetime, one she wrote for herself, playing the late governor of Texas, Ann Richards. Holland, it is wonderful to see you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Love talking about the play.
Well, you wrote this play by yourself, the very first play you ever wrote. And I've heard you say that you were channeling Ann Richards. You felt like she had a back door to your head as you were typing it up.
After all, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels.
Why did she resonate with you so much? You were very different people.
Well, couldn't be more different. That's the mystery of it, and that's the sort of the spiritual sense of it. I'm not even particularly a woo-woo person, but people who were closest to her said, this is uncanny. How did you know what life in the office was like? How could you? You were never there. And I said, I don't know how, but I do know.
And there is nothing like being swarmed by 30 little girls from Brownie Troop 526 in a four-stall ladies' room to put things in perspective.
And it's just, I did a lot of legitimate, just straight out research, as you know, for 3 years before I started writing. But I did have a feel for her that was driven partly, certainly, by my profound attachment and love for what she brought to America and her personality and her character. She was a great American leader. And I just had a need to celebrate her in a very active way so that the audience could experience her. It's not a biography in that sense. It's much more a visitation.
Please welcome Governor Ann Richards.
Yeah, you said you had to write this after Ann Richards passed away because you were so bereft. You felt like she'd been stolen from you.
I did, and it was really as though she was my favorite aunt or something. It was, it was a very strange feeling because I had met her once. You would certainly not say I knew her. And so I think something was at work. I think Anne was up there in heaven saying, I think you could do me. So why don't you?
You went to the University of Texas in Austin and used their archives, as you said, for 3 years because there's so many details from policy to personal life. What was that process like? Was it daunting?
Well, it's not just the archives. I mean, fortunately, nowadays scholars can look at these enormous binders and request certain papers. I did make my first visit there, and I requested lots of videos and lots of papers of hers. I was looking only for her persona. I went through the Finder with her top advisors saying, this speech seems to me to be would be a very fruitful one. And they tell me events that I should look up the videos for because I was trying to get who she was, because who she was had an enormous impact on people around her.
Suzanne, when I think of the opportunities to shine this job has given you, I just marvel that you don't spring up in the morning and rush to your desk in gratitude.
She was a difficult, tough boss, worked people to the bone. Nobody worked harder than she did. And when these people tell me about their memories of her, they invariably are in tears sooner or later because she meant so very much to them.
The Lord's eye may be on the sparrow, but the Pope is looking at Texas.
What did her family say about your likeness?
The children have been wonderful because I'm sure it's a mixed blessing. Pulls up a lot of emotions and, I'm sure a lot of tears when they see the play because, it's a warts and all evocation of her, which is why I think people are so inspired by her when they see the play because they know they're seeing the truth. But why would I show all these faults and foibles if the rest of it wasn't true? You get that she was a really devoted public servant.
Ann Richards has walked through fire, and the fire lost.
Holland Taylor was nominated for a Tony Award for her performance of Anne on Broadway in 2013. But just as she prepared to bring Anne to the Pasadena Playhouse in 2020, the pandemic forced the closure of theaters worldwide. Talk about what happened to the artists the theater community.
I know people who had to give up their homes in New York, who had to get out of their apartments. They couldn't make their rents. They had to leave. They had to go away from where the work would be if it came back. You're out of business. And think of all of you out there listening. I mean, the regional theaters in every city in America a lot of them had to shutter and with debt, just broken, ruined. And they're just clawing their way back now.
You told me how much the Pasadena Playhouse had to spend.
Oh my God! Because all public venues like that have to bring up their air conditioning and all the ventilation to a healthy standard, and they spent $2 million upgrading all of their equipment. And so think of a regional theater, $2 million. I mean, my God, think of it. Think of trying to raise it. Fortunately, they have patrons who carried them.
Thankfully, live theater is back. We are all so grateful. And now you are able to give us this show at the Playhouse. But you had to get back into shape, too. This is 40 pages of dialogue, single space. Talk to us about that process.
It's actually about 37. It is like an Add a Pearl situation. You actually can learn anything if you prepare and have enough time. I would learn a pearl, and then learn another pearl and string them together. And by the time the necklace gets really long, you have to review the whole necklace of pearls. So that the learning process for me always takes 2 months.
Well, I have a lot of opinions. Can you imagine if I were your mother-in-law? I could fix you.
But I also have to say, it's not just the words, which are incredible. You laugh, you cry, but there's a physicality to it, Holland. And you're it. You're the only person up there, and it requires a lot. Nobody coming to save you. You have got to keep us engaged there, and it's physical. I was impressed with your stamina.
I was too.
Now you all have to know, Texas politics is a contact sport. No autopsy, no foul.
Just get the play done, take care of yourself, get enough rest. It is a bit of a steeplechase to do it, but it's pretty joyful. It's pretty joyful to do too. It's like bam, did that, bam, bam, bam. I mean, it's great.
I also have to ask you about the Playhouse, because it must be different to be in such an intimate venue compared to Broadway, to hear those people laughing and calling out.
Yeah, they're very close in Pasadena, and you can hear individual laughter and individual snorts and responses, and there's a lot of in this play, because there are such essential truths that she speaks of that, depending on how a given audience is, you can really hear people, and certainly you hear a silence that is the silence of the ages, acute attention. It's just remarkable. It's a very lively house that way.
They want me to stop this. They forgive him.
Ann Richards died in 2006. She did not live to see the sort of divisive politics and hateful rhetoric that we hear every day now. What would she have made of it? Do you think she would have survived it?
I was just speaking with Cecile, her daughter, Cecile Richards, and we were saying how we sort of were glad that she wasn't in politics right at this time, because we feel she would find it so sad, because it's become so mean, so ad hominem, so cruel. But we could be wrong. She could find a way to rise above it and to deal with it emotionally, because she was very forward moving. You have to deal with the reality. She was like a general. You have to have a long view. You have to see, how the big picture is. So maybe she would be seeing a big picture that I am not capable of, unless I get her guidance in the first place.
The government isn't they. The government is you. It is me. It is us. And sometimes us, not at our very best.
Her legacy?
Fair play, fairness. So she was supremely fair in her life, and she was a genuine public servant who felt she could make life better for people. And you really get that, and it's very inspiring. A lot of politicians have come to see this play and have been extremely inspired by it.
I took a city bus to a big public school with thousands of kids, and they were all nationalities. All colors, all stripes and sizes. There are brown kids and Italians Asian and Greek students, Hispanic and black children, and those kids were all exactly like me. Oh, it was just a moment to make you blink.
She says, talks about when she was young and she was trying to, be an activist just for her community. Like, for instance, getting a stop sign put up at that bad intersection. A lot of us will have a bad intersection in where we live and say, geez, that place is an accident trap. It's so awful. But a woman like her says, well, I'll go to the city council and how to find out how to get one put up there. And that's a woman who could be president. The person who participates in a community, and that community could be as big as the world.
Holland Taylor, the play is Anne. It's at the Pasadena Playhouse. We loved it. And Holland Taylor, we loved you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have a visit with you. Thanks a lot.
Anne will be playing through